We we will have everyone muted. You will not be able to unmute yourself. We will have the chat open for running questions, and we will address them in the Q&A in the end. So if you have questions as we move along, please put them in the Q&A as we flow. We will put a sign up form in the chat, a link to a sign up form in the chat several times throughout the evening. We ask that you fill that out to get more involved. We have some great initiatives coming up this year and indefinitely for building. So we ask that you sign up and get more information and so you could be more involved, please. So we'll be putting that in several times throughout the evening. We will do an intro of the GS for our campaign. We will intro the guests, Abby Martin and Chris Smalls. We will discuss our 3 main questions that we always discuss with our guests on the town hall. And then we will open up the Q&A for everyone. So I'm going to kick this off by inviting Tom Diacono, one of the founding members of General Strike for Resignations, to talk about what is GS4R.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom. Thank you, Emily, for the introduction. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to start with a point we always make in Town Hall, which is workers create all value, all of it, every little bit of it. Workers are not an essential part of the economy. Workers are the economy. Jeff Bezos does not create value. Jeff Bezos extracts value, concentrates that value into the hands of very few people, and then that wealth is used to buy the Washington Post or Twitter to control the narrative. During COVID crisis, Wall Street bankers were not on the list of essential workers. It was the truckers, the farmers, the people picking the crops, the people working in the supermarket. We repeat this at every town hall because the entirety of Western consciousness is shaped around us forgetting this fact. This is the power we have, workers. We run the economy. We put on the lights. We do everything. Secondly, what we're going through at the moment is nothing new. It's a cycle. This has happened before. Homelessness since 2020 is up 33%, 18% in the last year. Within the same period, billionaires have doubled their wealth. History is full of lessons as what is to be done. The goal of General Strike for Resignations is to create a political missile that challenges status quo by getting all the people who are feeling alienated and disenfranchised to rally behind a specific targeted demand. And we need to face reality is that the West is not a revolutionary society. We like to tell ourselves we're the land of the free and we're free, but we are not a revolutionary society. There hasn't been an opposition to the right wing since forever. In the US, since Eugene Debs. The Democratic Party is not a left-wing party. We have 2 right-wing parties. Our collective consciousness for the last few decades has been pummeled by neoliberal ideology. But this also can be an opportunity because the way we see it is, if you had to view the US government as a corporation, which let's face it, it is, the job of the ruling class is to govern. And even through the neoliberal lens, they're failing miserably. Like, the situation isn't making sense anymore. You wouldn't employ an 80-year-old multimillionaire to run your company. So why are these people running the country? It's not making sense, even through their own reality that they created to the neoliberal lens. So this is what we're trying to do. Unless the workers get organized to leverage our labor to demand radical change, there isn't even going to be anything left to save for our children. Look at these fires in California. It's a perfect example of a failed system. You have slashed public budgets, forced prison labor, insurance companies pulled like 72,000 policies within the last year. What are these people going to do now? They've lost their houses in fires without insurance. That's thousands of homeless people who have to start from scratch. It's crisis after crisis after crisis. In the meantime, the stock market soars. And Trump threatens to invade Greenland.
Mhm.
Collapses here. Join a union. If you do not have a union, make a union. Join a left-wing party. Get politically educated. Enough is enough. It's time to strike. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tom. So many great snippets in that. I don't even want to say analysis, but in that truth. You know, that's the reason why we started General Strike for Resignations, and we're happy that you are all here tonight. So now I want to announce Abby Martin, who is our guest of honor tonight. Chris Smalls will be joining us in just a few minutes. He ended up having a last-minute event to go to that no one else could represent him at. So we'll wait on the line for him to join. But while we're waiting as well, we'd really love to turn it over to Abby. Just, Abby, would love to ask you to introduce yourself, what you feel is relevant, and why are you here? What is, you know, bringing you to this town hall, and what is bringing you to General Strike for Resignations at this time?
Thank you so much, Emily and Tom. That was really a needed kind of spark to the conversation to get us going. I mean, it's been devastating to see what's happening in a place that I just moved from a couple months ago, this climate catastrophe. So, you know, all of these things are linked together, and the urgency has never been more dire to organize against the two-party system. My name is Abby Martin. I'm an anti-imperialist journalist, grassroots citizen journalist who has based my entire career on fighting the two-party system and advocating on behalf of grassroots and marginalized communities, especially those impacted by our horrific genocidal foreign policy. And you know, Gaza has been such a wake-up call, I think, the first time in my life, I mean, since the Iraq War, that I've seen this surge, the swell of grassroots activism with an anti-imperialist internationalist lens, which I can even really say happened during the Iraq War. So there's a moment right now that we have that can really push these issues to the forefront, link our struggles together, whether it's climate change, police brutality, or the genocide going on in Gaza, and really kind of spread that consciousness like wildfire. And I'm just so optimistic about that moment that we have to seize, you know, and to educate people, because of course that's where it all has to start. Of course, Chris, and what you guys are doing, I mean, has been hugely inspirational, and I'm just honored to be here. You know, as someone who has fought for Palestinian advocacy and also been involved in the BDS litigation here in this country, I just kind of wanted to speak briefly about BDS organizing and BDS, the attacks on BDS, and why I think boycott, divestment, sanctions is so crucial in the labor movement and in our class consciousness. You know, pro-Palestine speech and BDS organizing have always been taboo and policed, especially on college campuses. But now we see that they are criminalized, and it's actually the most criminalized speech and activism in the country. And we're seeing largely, you know, this is reflective in places in Europe and beyond. But right now, you know, the mass violent arrests of student organizers, I mean, threats to basically cancel their future careers, get them expelled and suspended from universities. I mean, costing their lives essentially if they participate in pro-Palestinian activism. You know, but it goes so far beyond students, right? Entering the workforce. It's workers, average poor people, working class folk who are just trying to express solidarity at places everywhere, wearing simply a watermelon pin. And there's accounts that are, you know, these accounts, they're funded. There's multi-billion-dollar campaigns invested in these doxing and harassment campaigns of just average citizens who are just trying to put themselves out there in just simple expressions of solidarity. And it's absolutely heinous and disgusting because it works. because companies listen to this. You know, my friend is high up at Pete's Coffee, for example, and of course, all these coffee shops, they encourage you, you know, wear your flair and express yourself, and yeah, you know, LGBTQ and all these things. It's like they encourage that kind of identitarian expression. But when it comes to something like the Gaza genocide, nope. You can get fired and you're persona non grata. And what these pro-Israel campaigns do is they'll send thousands of form letters that look organic because they have you fill in the blanks, and you know you can editorialize them, but they'll come in the thousands and they scare the shit out of these corporations, and then they'll just immediately cede to the demand. It's outrageous, and it's happening all across the country. You know, medical students, law students, I mean, everyone. I mean, this is happening in part because, like I said, the tens of billions of dollars that are behind these campaigns. I mean, when I went on Joe Rogan a couple of years ago and I just talked about the reality in Gaza, I saw firsthand the consequences of this, where he got thousands of letters about me being on. And as controversial as Joe Rogan is, he said he has never received that kind of backlash for having on any one of his guests before. So it just really kind of exposes the apparatus that we're up against. Because, of course, as we know, I mean, this is an extension of the US government. This is an extension of US foreign policy, of imperialism. It's just an appendage, right? That's what we know Israel is. But because of this campaign to punish people of conscience, it's created this environment where people are just simply terrified to put themselves out there, terrified to put their public opinions out in the public arena. I've had teachers come up to me at events saying, thank you for what you're doing. I wish that I could be vocal just on my social media, but I'm scared of losing my job. I wish that I could wear a keffiyeh out, but what if someone from my school recognizes me and gets me fired? I mean, these are real fears. This is a real chilling effect. And people, it's sickening. It's sickening because it's the most transparent, it's the crime of crimes. And the fact that people are bullied into silence is just abominable. I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen anything remotely similar happening to the proud Zionists who advocate openly with their chests to genocide people. So it's just this outrageous double standard, right? But I think, as Tom so poignantly pointed out, the fires that we're seeing today, Gaza, everything boils down to class war. It is so horrific to look at my computer and I see just take after take from these tech overlords who are overseeing our new neo-feudal tech dictatorship, telling us that it's the Democrats' fault, right? This is all partisan politics. Oh, the Democrats didn't rake the trees enough. I mean, look, this is obviously both parties are corrupt to the core. They have both committed themselves to hollowing out any sort of capacity to deal and mitigate the worst effects of climate change. And this is what we're left with. We're left to suffer and die in the wake of these capitalist pigs' profit. Their bottom line, which they'll never get enough of, because it's never enough. It's never enough. So, you know, this dystopian world where black is white and up is down, I mean, it's just made even more difficult to navigate, of course, because you look at the wide swath of legislation of anti-BDS laws, especially here in the US, and it has completely stymied any activism, again, making that chilling effect from just average workers and maybe preventing them from feeling like they can be a part of the struggle, an active part of the struggle. And I just want to briefly talk about my case in Georgia before we move on to the rest of the panel. I was scheduled to give a keynote address at Georgia Southern University about media literacy, ironically enough, and I was given one of those anti-BDS contracts saying that I could never boycott the state of Israel or advocate boycotting the state of Israel if I wanted to receive state funds in the state of Georgia. For people who are listening who maybe not know about these laws, more than 80% of the states, or 80% of America, they have these anti-BDS laws on the books that basically mandate if you want to receive state funds, whether you're a construction worker or substitute teacher or anything, you have to sign a contract, basically a fealty pledge to the state of Israel in order to work. So this happened to me. I was taken aback, and of course I refused to sign. Long story short, I sued the state of Georgia. I won initially on the grounds and the pretense that, of course, boycott is an enshrined First Amendment protected right. This goes back to the Montgomery bus boycotts. The Supreme Court enshrined the right to boycott as a First Amendment. It's a free speech issue. And so, of course, any constitutional lawyer or judge overseeing any of these BDS cases or plaintiffs taking these to court would say, yeah, of course, this is a flagrant violation of our First Amendment. So that happened. Get this, a couple months later, an Israeli government official came to the Georgia State House to advocate to change the law to render my case moot. And so, like the good servile, like politicians they are, they just said, okay, yep, we'll change the law because, of course, it's all about anti-Semitism, not about the First Amendment or Constitution. So, yes, we're going to change the law in this cynical fashion so they could keep the law on the books and render my case moot. But it's just a cynical ploy on behalf of Israel to keep these laws on the books, even though they know that they are unconstitutional. And what this whole crackdown on BDS shows is that they know the tide of justice is coming. They know that BDS and union organizing and labor organizing is what will bring down the fall of apartheid. And that is why they are preemptively trying to curb that tide of justice. And so we have to keep the fight alive and we have to keep going because that is what's going to make this stop.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So powerful and so true. I really, and I didn't know about your personal story, but wow, that's just, I don't even want to say wild in this environment right now. It's not even that wild. It's just so much of a snapshot of what we're living in during this time. And we don't know how our, constitutional rights are even gonna keep, if they're even gonna keep going over this time right now. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to just jump in to the questions. Excuse me?
Chris is here.
Okay, Chris is here. Great. I don't see him. One moment. Do we have Chris here? Sorry, everyone. I cannot really see everyone since I'm on speaker view. Well, we'll just keep going forward. We'll let Abby answer the first question until Chris gets unmuted and gets on video. Our first question of the evening is about a general strike, building power. Why do we need a general strike in the United States and what could we achieve? Abby, if you want to start, and then once Chris jumps on video, because I don't see him yet, he'll chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was politically activated and radicalized after the Iraq War, and my class consciousness, of course, took a little bit to catch up. First, I didn't really understand like the whole system analysis, and fast forward to Occupy Wall Street, and I remember the general strike. I remember it was the most beautiful day of my life. It was thousands of people, perhaps tens of thousands of people. We all marched to the Oakland shore, and I mean, we just shut shit down. And I think that was the first realization for me that unions were actually the essential component to successfully organize pretty much anything that could really shut down capitalism. Because of course we know, I saw someone say the other day, like a protest, if it's not bothering anyone or shutting anything down, it's just a parade. And so for me, it's like disruption is the goal, right? We have to stop business as usual so that people will listen to us and cede to the demands of the working class. And it was so incredible. I just realized, oh my God, why aren't more unions this militant? Why aren't more unions standing on behalf of people who are doing this? I mean, why aren't we all on board with each other? Why aren't we integrating this more? And then, of course, the class consciousness and learning more about the gutting of unions and the gutting of the labor movement for the last 60 years. And of course, that's why union density, of course, is just so abysmally low because people are so this country, anti-communism is the bedrock of this country. I mean, capitalism is our unofficial religion. So of course, I mean, the propaganda is very steeped, right? I mean, and I think that's what's very difficult. I think we see a complete change in that consciousness as of late. I think Bernie really helped catapult that. And I think right now we're in this really historic moment where all of the energy over the last 14 months needs to be directed at a tangible general strike to shut down business because we have tried the disparate actions. We have tried the pocketed activism. And of course, that has been amazing. And we've seen incredible things happen from that. But we have to organize together nationally and force the hand of power. And I am fully on board with that. I am ready because I don't want this to become normalized. Who wants genocide normalized? Who wants the cataclysmic effects of climate change at our doorstep? No, we have to act now. We have to get involved and we have to do everything in our capacity to stop this. And so I'm stoked and I'm I'm on board, man. Let's do it.
Amen. Amen to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Abby. And Chris, I hope you're doing well tonight. I love the look. Most
I'm
people.
sorry, I'm multitasking, y'all. So
Oh,
I'm literally in the basement of an award ceremony. So sorry for the inconvenience. Sorry for the delay. Sorry for the background noise. I apologize in advance, everybody. Shout out to Abby Martin for holding it down for us. Shout out to GS4R for putting this together, this amazing town hall, our third town hall, back to back to back. 9 days into the new year, 9 days in, and look at all the shit that we have been through so far. It's amazing to me. So, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Abby's talking about. Labor organizing. That is our ultimate weapon against the capitalistic system that we live in. We're holding our labor, and Abby hit it right on the head. Why isn't there much more militancy within the union movement? Well, a few things. We already touched on this a few times over the last couple of town halls, but once again in America, union density is in the gutter. We have less than 10% in the public sector, less than 6% in the private sector. So even though we see these amazing strikes, we see these major unions organized in places like Amazon, organized in places like Starbucks, the UAW, the auto workers, the teachers, the SAG actors, even though we have these amazing, powerful unions, union density has been on the decline for the last 5 decades in this country. Now, this last election obliterated the NLRB. The last line of defense is now gone. If you don't know, if you haven't been paying attention, we lost the last seat for the NLRB now, which is the National Labor Relations Board, what is the agency that worker organizers or anybody from the working class can use to hold companies accountable, to hold union elections, and also file ULPs, unfair labor practice lawsuits against the employer. Guess what, y'all? We just lost the seat, and now it's now right wing, just like our presidency, just like our Senate, and just like our House now. So that means that all the major victories that we had over the last 2 to 3 years, Amazon workers unionizing for the first time in history, Starbucks workers unionizing for the first time in history, Trader Joe workers, Apple workers, Google workers, all of these tech workers, all of the workers that organize unions over the last couple of years, we're now under fire, we're under threat. All of our victories are now going to be reversed under a Trump administration. So the sense of urgency, that ship done sailed. The Democrats have failed us. They didn't provide any federal laws under this most pro-union administration, which Joe Biden claims to be, and they didn't pass a PRO Act. The PRO Act hasn't passed. This is something that they've been talking about for the last 5 to 6 years. So we're in trouble. We're in trouble, and if we don't do anything about it, guess what? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, and whoever is running Google and Apple, they're coming together already. They already sued the NLRB to say that it's unconstitutional, meaning that they're going to obliterate the agency altogether. They're going to defund the National Labor Relations Board. They're already overwhelmed. They're already $20 million in debt. And if we do not have a line of defense from the working class, from the bottom up, not the top down, we are in trouble. There's no cavalry coming to save us. This is the reason why I fully support GS4R. I fully support third parties. I fully support having a viable labor party in the US, something that we had back in the 1970s. It dissolved because our two-party system did exactly what they did this last election cycle. They attacked it. They attacked it to the point that it dissolved. The same way they attacked the third parties like Jill Stein and Cornell and Claudia De La Cruz, they're going to attack the Labor Party that we're going to try to build this time around as well. They don't want to go outside this two-party system because they know that their pockets are aligned with these billionaires and these corporations. So this is not a call of action, people. This is literally saving humanity, saving our democracy, and fighting for a future that we want to see our children grow up in, something that we're not dealing with now. I don't know about you guys, but I have twins that are 12 years old. They're on their way to high school. And I think about the reason why I get up and do the work every day. It's literally because I do not want my children, I don't want my daughter, I don't want my son to have to go through the hardship that I'm experiencing every day as a 36-year-old Black man in America. And I know people that are parents here on the call, people that are aspiring to have children in the future. This is a scary time even thinking about bringing in a child into this world right now. While we're experiencing an active genocide, while we're experiencing the fires in LA, a climate crisis, while we're experiencing a healthcare crisis, and while we're experiencing a homelessness crisis in America right now. So what are we going to do about it? Unfortunately, the ones that came before us, some of them have dropped the ball, not all of them, but there's been a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of politicians that haven't done what they were supposed to do, their due diligence by the working class. It was clear as day that the Democrats had lost touch with the working class. When you spend $10 million and give it to Beyonce, a billionaire, when you spend money, $1 million, and give it to a billionaire, Oprah, when you spend $500,000 on traveling on private jets to get to DNC conventions, and when you're endorsing the active genocide, you have lost touch with the working class. And this election has proved that through and through. Yeah. So people want to know, how did I beat $1 trillion company like Amazon? It wasn't money. It wasn't resources. You know what it was? It was the community. It was the people to the left and the right of me. One thing for sure, Amazon calculates money. They calculate their profits. They calculate how many people they hire and fire. By the way, they almost fired the entire American workforce. So 1 out of every 4 Americans in the next few years is going to work for this company. Just keep that in mind. I'm not even going to touch on AI because AI is a bigger threat that we have to worry about. But that is going to wipe out 50% of American jobs in the next 5 years. So people power is something that billionaires, corporations, politicians, they cannot calculate the strength of people power when we come together. No matter what your background is, no matter what your ideology is, no matter what your political views are, if we come together and withhold our ultimate power, which is our labor, there's nothing that moves without the power of people. And this is why I believe in these calls, these town halls, because we're building people power just by showing up. The first step in solidarity is showing up. And how much does solidarity cost? It's actually free. Believe it or not, solidarity is free. To have a conversation, to have a hug, to hand out a shoulder to cry on or lean on, to be there in community, to create mutual aid. You see what we've done with the people that's suffering right now in LA? automatically we jump right to social media and we start sharing mutual aid right away. That's because we know the strength in organizing. We know the strength in our communities. It's not the government that's going to save us. They cut $23 million of the funds.
Mhm.
So they rather put $100 million into the LAPD, defund fire prevention by $23 million, and send $8 billion to Israel. Let that sink in.
Yep.
They do not care about us. Billionaires, there's no such thing as a good billionaire. I've said this plenty of times. I don't give a damn if you are Rihanna. I don't give a damn if you are Barack Obama. I don't give a damn if you're LeBron James. There's no such thing as a good billionaire. In order to become that rich, you have to exploit a class of people. And billionaires, their only objective is to hoard the earth, destroy the planet, and fly to Mars or build a fucking bunker in Hawaii somewhere. Those are the only two objectives in life, is to build a bunker because they're afraid of us, or fly on their penis-shaped rockets to another planet and try to colonize another planet in the future. But guess what? We're going to hold them accountable because we're tired. And we are here to say enough is enough. So I'm so honored to be in company with you guys here because I believe in each and every one of y'all, because y'all solidarity has showed up tonight and y'all will continue to show up. So everybody here on the call, do us a favor. It doesn't cost you anything. The next town hall that we have, please share. The next call to action, please get involved. The next picket line for Amazon workers, please show up because we need you guys. And the one thing I want to touch on while my time is limited, I want to touch on an important campaign for Amazon workers that's taking place right now as we speak in North Carolina. North Carolina, y'all, the right to work state with Jim Crow laws, is right now under historical campaign with RDU1, North Carolina Amazon workers. Their movement is an Amazon cause. You can follow them on any social media platform. They're called Amazon Cause. They're led by Reverend Ryan and Mama Mary, two working class hero leaders, Black leaders who I had plenty of time to spend with. We went to Cuba together. We spent time in Washington, D.C. together, and they just filed for their election against Amazon a few days ago, and they got through. Their election is in 4 weeks. 4 weeks, y'all. So Amazon is now spending millions of dollars to do the same thing they did Union Bust at the other campaigns like Staten Island and beyond. So I need everybody here to not only share and amplify that movement, but donate if you can. Show up to North Carolina if you can in person. I'll be down there in a few weeks. We're going to have a huge rally at the end of the month to try to get these workers to vote yes. And let me tell y'all this, if they win in North Carolina, which is 10 times harder than organizing in Staten Island, because it's a right to work state, it will change the trajectory of labor movement in forever in the South and in America as a whole. So we need everybody to show up for these workers, and we need everybody to get involved. And once again, I want to say thank you all for showing up here tonight. Thank you, Abby Martin. You're amazing. You know, I love you. Love and solidarity. I'm going to see you soon in one of these cities, as you know. And we're going to continue to build this movement. And I need everybody to do one last thing for me. Follow the Labor Party US on Instagram. There's something that I'm building. I need all the support that I can. I need people to get involved. I need volunteers. And soon we're going to need hubs in every major city across America so that we can be on the ballot to combat Elon and Trump in 2028. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
Chris, I was going to see if you're jumping off right now or if you have a few more moments. I'm sorry, Abby, if Chris needs to jump off right now. But I wanted to just really quickly, Chris, ask you about 1 or 2 minutes. We have already a few questions in the chat about the Labor Party, and you're the best person to answer those questions. So if you don't mind, people are asking, are we really starting a US Labor Party? Do you want to give a little bit about the background and what we're thinking as we're moving forward? I know General Strike for Resignations is a key player in how this is going to work, because this two-party system, this democracy we have, will not allow a new party to rise unless we exercise our power as workers to shut down the economy and demand that we allow this to happen. So, these two things are intrinsically linked. People are asking about the Labor Party. Do you want to give just a 2-minute overview quickly before you have to jump off, and then we'll move back to Abby? I'm sorry about that, Abby.
No worries.
Chris is muted, I think, Nato. Chris, one moment. I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Yes, I can answer this one question about, yes, we are 1000% starting a party again. This is something that I've been thinking about for the last 9 months. I've been traveling the world, various countries, socialist countries, communist countries, countries that have union density of 90%, literally 90% union density. And I've been learning from different unions, learning from different politicians and parliaments from around the world that have labor parties, that have socialist parties in government. And what I've learned is that we've been duped here in America. We have not received the things that we deserve, like universal health care, like the right to organize without a repercussion, so on and so forth, housing, free housing, homelessness. There's so many things I could touch on, but yes, to answer your question in short, we are starting a Labor Party. It's definitely a snowball effect. We're just getting started, so bear with me on the lack of posting on that handle. But I'll tell you real quick, the next phase is I'm going to roll out the policies for the Labor Party. I want everybody to take a look at the policies and give me your feedback. I love feedback. This is something that we can work on collectively. I'm not excluding anybody. I want everybody, we have allies. I know people are saying there's a lot of similarities to other third parties. They're allies. We're giving people more options. I think more is better, and we got to get out the two parties. If people want to join our party, they're welcome. If they want to join another movement, they're welcome. But the bottom line is getting out of the two-party system. And I think the Labor Party is the way to hold unions accountable, because the unions have been endorsing the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party has been endorsing genocide. So we need to hold them accountable to get them to escape that party system, and also make sure that they are connected to the working class. And I think the only vehicle that be able to do that is a Labor Party. And I'm sorry that I have to jump off so quick, but you guys know we do these town halls every month. So we'll have another town hall in February. Stay tuned for that. And you guys know y'all have an open line of communication with me. Y'all can reach out to me on any one of my social media platforms. Y'all can DM me, message me. If you have my number, text me, email me, etc. I love you guys. Stay safe. Prayers up for LA. Free Palestine. And we're not free until we all free. Love and solidarity, y'all.
Thank you so much, Chris. So much. A lot to touch on there as well. But yeah, based also on what Chris said, and organizing in the United States, one positive thing we see when we have natural disasters, we see the people coming together. We see how it's possible for people to support each other, for resources to be spread out. That's one of the small positive things that comes from this, but one of the things that gives us the greatest hope for organizing during this really, really bleak time is that we do see glimpses during natural disasters, when people come together, build solidarity, help each other. And yeah, we need each other during this time, to say the least. We kind of ran through our main questions about general strike for resignations, why we need a strike. We can touch on the resignations part in the Q&A. I am going to give it back to Abby to see if she has any more comments following on from what Chris said briefly before we get into the questions from everyone and do our wrap up with Melissa. Abby, if you want to take a
Yeah,
few
I
minutes.
just I wanted to add quickly to the, Palestine commentary. It was kind of surprising to me that it took a really long time for prominent unions to get on board with just the call for a ceasefire. Because for me, that's such a no-brainer thing that should have been immediate. Like, yep, stop the killing on all sides. So I'm really, really excited to now see the transition into calling for an arms embargo from some unions, not all. But I think it's, obviously it's a key demand and central to justice and accountability, and it absolutely needs to be incorporated in all unions. And it's kind of alarming that it took a long time. But like Chris was just saying, I mean, a lot of these big unions are kind of just appendages of the Democratic Party. And so it's really hard to break that allegiance. But I think workers' strikes from unions are absolutely paramount at this point. And we have to have that in order to build the broader anti-war movement and to integrate these struggles under an internationalist banner. In May, tens of thousands of union members and UC systems began these rolling strikes and walkouts and pickets in response to the crackdowns on protests. And I think that idea is really essential to continue and build upon, especially on a national level. Because look, it's not some abstract thing. This has been done. Something as huge as apartheid, which is a crime against humanity, was collapsed because largely of union efforts within South Africa. It wasn't because of the goodwill or the intention of the US or politicians saying, hey, you know what, apartheid actually isn't good. No, it happened because of militancy of Black-led unions, Black workers inside of South Africa that said, no, we're going to shut it down until we get rights and justice. And that's only why BDS was successful there, not only inside the country, but around the world, the international solidarity with unions around the world who also did militant actions in solidarity with Black unions, Black-led unions in South Africa. And right now, if you look at what BDS nationally is calling for, their website states, this is not just a moral issue. It's a legal obligation. International workers' solidarity begins with ending complicity. And that's paramount to this struggle. And just kind of piggybacking off what Chris said about the two-party system. I mean, just a personal anecdote. I remember back, I'm embarrassed to say that I took a swing state trip for John Kerry in 2004. I just thought Bush was evil incarnate. It took me a long time to realize how fucked up the two parties were. I think my catalyst was seeing Nancy Pelosi basically telling us that impeachment for George W. Bush was off the table. And that's when I kind of realized, oh, this goes beyond one party. This goes beyond even the political establishment because the media is integrated in all of this, and the media will act in a unified fashion to suppress and to propagandize us and to manufacture consent for oligarchy. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. And so I think we need to really support third-party efforts, support political movements, and really approach it in a big tent fashion, because that's the only way we're going to win. I think the biggest problem on the left, obviously, aside from the fact that we don't have any left-wing billionaires who will fund any of our projects, is this kind of siloing off into oblivion and the competitiveness between us of our brand building. Because we live in this hyper-capitalist late-stage model, we're constantly trying to compete with our identified brands. And I think that really, we need to really set that aside, and we really need to open our tent. And I'm not saying open it up to fascists and Nazis. I'm saying open it up to people who are like-minded, right? We have to build, we have to work together, and we have to open our ears, open our minds and our hearts, and listen. And, I try to do that everywhere I go. I just try to start the conversation and just listen. How can I relate to this person best? How can I meet them where they are? Right? And I think that's key. And yes, it's hard to get out of your comfort zone. It's hard to do this work, but we have to. It is our survival.
Yeah, exactly. There were a few questions on the chat actually regarding this, and I'll just read them aloud. We're supposed to do kind of a wrap up for what we're doing for GS4R, but I thought let's just segue into this for the moment since we're kind of on this topic. They're all very similar from members of the chat. I will say them to you now, and then if you just want to address them all at once. How do we organize and combat against the increasing surveillance and militarized police state that has been given more money for their budget and continue to target activists? Also, any advice on how to inspire others? I feel like I'm surrounded people who keep saying, I don't know what to do, but never seem to act when there are opportunities for actions. And do you all have recommendations for organizing a small, mostly hospitality service business for a national general strike? So I would say let's address those first two kind of based on what you just said, and then we'll go into a couple others.
You know, it's the hardest thing in the world because we're living under this kind of neo-feudal tech dictatorship where these tech overlords are basically dictating to us what our reality is. They're curating what we see, and they algorithmically suppress obviously radical revolutionary content. So that's first and foremost a huge problem, right? And of course, like going back to the chilling effect, it scares people because they don't want to get banned, they don't want to get censored, and they don't want to get fired. And so I think this is it's a huge pressing question that I don't think any of us really have the answer to, other than we have to get creative. We have to go back to peer-to-peer sharing information, newsletters, zines, things that are tangible that you can hold, right? Because if we just cede all of our power and organizing and all of our momentum online and it can just get completely obliterated, where do we go from there? So we have to have a backup. We have to get back to mailing lists. I keep going back to like the listservs and the mailing lists and the origin of the internet. That is what we need. Right. And so we have to keep building upon those ideas that kind of seem boomery now, but I think we realize now like how foundational they are to our struggles and organizing. As far as getting out of our comfort zone and helping activate people, you know, I think it's really up to people's capacity and ability, you know, and of course privilege too. I mean, I'm a privileged white woman. I'm an American woman, and I have privilege because of the color of my skin. And I am able to do more than marginalized people, than undocumented people. And so I will put myself out there and risk arrest. I will go to the front lines and do these things because I know that I also have the capacity to generate funds for bail and things like that. So I think, you know, obviously you don't need to go and risk arrest, but I think there's so many little steps that you can take, even if you're just isolated in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. You don't know who's out there. You may think that you're alone. Put yourself out there online, start a little local group. You'd be floored to see who shows up, maybe at the local coffee shop that cares about these issues. And again, once you activate that flame, it can go off on so many directions. And like Chris was saying, I mean, this to me, above everything else, the movement is the beauty and the love. That's where I find peace and hope, is the struggle. That's how I met my husband. My kids were born out of that, you know, and that's why I fight. That's why I will fight till the day I die, because it's all of my friends and family, and that's what brings me solace, and it comforts my soul. And so I encourage everyone, it shouldn't be scary, it should be motivating, because once you put yourself out there and once you start making the connections with like-minded people, that's life. That's what makes life worth living.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. This emotion, and honestly, in the same boat as you, I also met my partner through the struggle. Our life is building through the struggle, the ups and the downs, the destroying the old system and the old empire, and building and grounding and rooting at the same time. So we are in the same boat, all of us here on this team. You know, I wanted to just touch base on a couple other current event issues. We didn't have too many more. Except for a question about organizing hospitality and service businesses. I think that would be a question better shaped for Chris. So I will leave that a little bit on the back burner now because it's so specific. I wanted to ask Tom about the why resignations and general strike resignations. People asked about this on the chat just now. That was one of our main questions we did not lead with this evening. But I wanted to ask Tom, who does the strike target for resignations? That's the first question they asked. And why resignations? You know, we saw something with South Korea happening the last couple of weeks, and yeah, if Tom doesn't mind to give us a more comprehensive overview of why we're asking for resignations and what that means.
Why resignations? It's meeting reality where it is and where it's going, where in the sense of the US, the West in general is extremely divided, especially the left or the opposition is divided. We've been told that liberalism was opposition to fascism, but it isn't. Liberalism is the base of fascism. So we're stuck in this reality where you have these very well-read leftists that are, we need a revolution with a bit of a purity fetish. However, we're just not there. Like Chris said, I mean, unionization in private is 6%. So the general strike for resignations applies the realpolitik of the situation we're in the US, where, as I said, if you had to rate the US government as a corporation, the employees, the executives are just not delivering. They're not delivering on providing an economy that works for the people. And we're seeing it in real time. All the money is being funneled out into wars overseas, and we don't have enough money to have functioning fire hydrants. So this is the idea of general strike for resignations. It's to get the minds that are in the middle that have been shaped by liberalism to say, hey, this makes sense. If this was a giant corporation that I worked in and my CEO was stealing money from the company to funnel it out of the company and the company wasn't functioning, I would ask him to resign. So it hits a broader audience to start thinking within the political sphere. And who to resign, the second part of the question, anyone who's taken money from IPAC, that's just one off the top of my head. I mean, how can a foreign government boast that they've spent hundreds of millions? I think it's 400 million that we know of. I mean, Biden himself took like 10 million from IPAC. Since when is it legal for a foreign state to spend $500 million on an election when at the same time the neoliberal news and narrative is screaming about Russian meddling when the Israelis are showing off that they meddle? Anyone who's taken money from Israel should resign. Anyone who's worked on the executive board of a weapons manufacturing company should resign. That's an obvious conflict of interest. Any politician that has stock should resign. I mean, these are bare minimum basic requirements for not having a conflict of interest, even if you're running a corporation, even within the neoliberal sphere of decency. So this is why we're focusing on resignations, to get the liberals that now that Trump is back are going, Trump is back. The Democrats didn't manage to stop the crazy fascists, and looking for a solution. Because if we remain stuck in an echo chamber of leftism, you know, do we want to be right or do we want to win? So this is why we chose resignations and who we're targeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that passion. Let me just look if we have any more questions in the chat. You know, one thing that we could direct towards Abby, I'm not sure if it's something you feel comfortable, if you're comfortable answering, Abby, but someone put an observational comment possibly to address. What happened after Occupy Wall Street? It seems inequality in the billionaire class are worse than ever, and it feels bleak. Maybe this is something you would want to address?
Absolutely. I mean, as a core member of the Occupy Oakland, Occupy Wall Street crew, I will say that I think it kind of exposes that anarchism and decentralization can only take you so far. Of course, there's gorgeous mutual aid efforts, and of course, it erupted into a lot of things that, like the Jubilee, like the debt, absolving debt, and all these really awesome things that sparked from Occupy. But to have a rudderless movement without clear demands, I think was a failed strategy. And I think we saw where that took us, which is it was just kind of all over the place. I mean, I remember we were at Frankagawa Plaza in Oakland, and Obama's campaign headquarters was a block away. And I was like, let's go, let's fucking let's do a sit-in. And they were just like, no, like, we're not, this isn't really about Obama. Of course, just like a couple people there who disagreed with me. But I was just like, the fact that we can't even get on board with the fact that Obama, who is the president, you know, I mean, it's just absurd. And his cabinet was just stacked with Wall Street executives. And it's just like, come on, guys. I mean, so there were so many issues. I think it was a beautiful organic uprising that could have gone in a million different ways. And I think that we learned a lot from it. And one of the things that we learned was that we need a coherent strategy and clear demands. And you know, and it was very open to infiltration. I mean, obviously anyone could get up there and just declare themselves a leader and take over the space. And so it was a grand experiment, and I think it showed the capacity and the ability to galvanize and radicalize really quickly. And I think, you know, I hadn't seen anything like that until this year, which again brings me back to the optimism, the revolutionary optimism that I do have. Because for the first time in my life, I am seeing internationalism, people who care about people in other countries that are the victims and those that are impacted by what my government is doing. And I know it sounds trite maybe, but it's beautiful because I haven't seen it before, because we're such empire babies and we're so self-absorbed. And so this is a moment. And the failures of the 2024 election, the failures of the Democratic Party, the detachment and the detachment, right? The disenfranchisement from the working class. It exposes the system for what it is. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm happy it happened that way. I'm happy that Kamala was a complete abject failure who didn't even let an uncommitted Palestinian advocate for her at the DNC, because that's how much they hate us. That's the contempt they have for us. Why should we give them an inch? We should not invest any energy or activism into electoralism for this two-party system. Because like everyone already knows, I mean, elections are just pulling a lever once every 2 to 4 years. That's not activism. That's not organizing. That's not going to change anything. It's our bones and our souls, and it's 24 hours a day. This work never ends. But of course, like, we don't want to burn out. So it's just whatever you can give, right? Whatever the capacity that you have. But there is a moment right now. There's a moment, and it's bubbling over. And it's up to us what we do with this energy. And I don't want to waste it.
Yep, exactly. I think one of the most positive things we saw from this recent election is just that, the glaring fact that we cannot put a band-aid or a mask on it anymore, that it's not working. Everyone is so tired of, you know, all these decades and decades of choosing the lesser evil. Like, it's just it's over. So
I just want really quickly, it's like we need to let this radicalize us. Like, I think people are so demoralized and despondent, especially with seeing climate change and younger generations, and they're like, what the fuck is the future even consist of for me? And it's very dire. And let this moment expose everything and radicalize them. And we need to be that push to help guide everyone in the right direction, because the right wing will. The right wing
yes.
will absolutely utilize that capacity. And we're already seeing millions of young, disaffected white men becoming right-leaning and reactionary. And we have to change that tide.
Exactly. Yep. They're you know, better at organizing than us, unfortunately. So more militant at organizing than us in some ways. So we need to really, we have to do this for self-preservation. So everyone, we're getting at the hour. I'm going to bring it back to Melissa from the GS for our team. She's going to just do a final wrap up about our solutions and our building power to win, and how all of you can get involved and help us. We do have the form that's been put in the chat. If you haven't seen it yet, we're going to add it again here. So Melissa, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Abby, so much. So yes, just very quick, since 2019, I just wanted to say that over 1.6 million workers have gone on a strike across the United States, demanding for better working conditions, higher wages, and job security. From auto co-workers, workers, to Hollywood writers, to nurses, Amazon employees, public school teachers, etc. So if all of us were to come together and strike together, imagine the impact that that will create, and what we will be capable of achieving together. So as Chris said earlier, the first step in solidarity is showing up. You are all here. Now we want you to bring a +1 in the next town hall that we have, sign the strike card that we're going to put in the chat. Follow us on Instagram for more information about what we're doing. So coming up, we have a 10 city labor teach-in tour with Chris Smalls, which will be happening from March to April this year. We also have a conference around June 1st to discuss all of the outcomes that we would like to achieve and the actions needed, possibly in LA. And then we also have the development of the US party, the US Labor Party that Chris is working on right now. We need volunteers. We will need a lot of volunteers to help Chris. So if you want more information, if you want to volunteer, please go to the laborpartyus.com for more information. And then also just we'll be getting ready for our first national general strike. So we need all of you. We need you and your friends and everybody to join us. Follow us on Instagram for more information. Join our town halls. Come up and show up for the next information sessions that we have. And thank you, everyone. And I'll pass it back to Emily.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. That's wonderful. So, like Melly said, you know, we need you for every type of thing we can possibly do to get this US Labor Party off the ground. It takes, thousands of us to just put it together and do the legwork. And then it's going to take millions of us to strike for us to shut down the economy, for them to take us seriously. Otherwise, we're going to see another situation like we saw in this recent election, that they won't allow third parties to, get involved, to debate, to be an actual player in the game. And that's why this strike is also so important. We have to, we have to end this duopoly. We have to take back the power. We have to unite. Big shout out to my girl Yaz, who's on the call as well. And thank you all for joining. Really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much, Abby. It was invaluable, and we really appreciate your solidarity. Thanks, Melissa, and thank you, team, for making this happen. We'll be putting a recording of this on YouTube, and please share it far and wide, and check out our Instagram and socials, and let's connect offline. Make sure you fill out that form. Thank you, team.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.